So the weather is getting a little bit nastier out right now. The lens itself is probably gonna be fine. So what I did is for the body, is I brought a coat with me, or you could bring a plastic bag, which I have one of those as well. And I just draped it over the camera. So we'll zoom in a little bit. And I draped it over the camera real carefully in between the shots. I'm taking a shot every 10 seconds. So in between those shots, so I didn't cause the shot to mess up. I threw the coat on there very, very lightly, very softly, and the coat will protect the actual camera body. The lens is still a little exposed, and but that's an okay thing. Your lens, the water's not going to seep into your lens. The port where the lens connects into the camera right there, you know, that main piece, that is covered as well, so no water's going to seep in through that. So I should be all right. But this is something that you guys should think about bringing or doing. Let me zoom back out here so you guys can see me. So this is something that you want to keep in the back of your mind, just like one of those things. It's like I should probably bring a plastic bag or a coat or something just in case that the weather gets bad, but I want to keep shooting. This is an option that you guys have. So I'll just leave the coat on there. It's not going to throw the shot off. You know, I made sure that the coat wasn't in the way of the lens. You know, basic stuff like that you got to look at when you're throwing it on there. And of course, you don't want to move the camera at all when you're shooting. You also want to use a very sturdy tripod. So I'm actually using my second best tripod, my main tripod. I'm hoping to use to shoot a product review later on while I'm out here, and I need the better tripod for that product review. But this tripod is stable enough, and it will do just fine. You do not want one of those cheap Walmart tripods usually, because any kind of wind or anything that could cause movement in your shot is going to throw your time-lapse off, which is okay if it happens like right at the beginning of the time-lapse, you know? Then you've got the rest of the time-lapse to work with. But if it's like towards the end and it just throws, or in the middle, it could just throw your whole time-lapse off. As well, you want to kind of figure out how long you're going to be in a spot. So I'm shooting 600 shots. 600 shots at 10 seconds equals out to, let's see here. So 600 is about an hour and 20 minutes of shooting. So that's going to have to be there for an hour and 20 minutes shooting, which means I may or may not have to change the battery. All I need is really 400 shots, but I'm doing 600 so I can get a little bit extra. The more shots, the better always with time-lapse. If you have the time, go on, get yourself an extra couple hundred shots. If you don't have the time, get what you need and roll. So time-lapse is something where you got to have some time. I mean, I've kind of dedicated a whole day to shooting time-lapse so that I have time to really methodically plan everything out, think everything through. Because time-lapse is not something you just throw together, at least not when you're first starting out. Maybe 6 months from now when I don't even have to think about it and I know all the settings and everything that I need and it's just second nature, that might be a little bit easier. I just walk out, set up, boom, I'm good to go. So we now have our first kind of issue that we got to get around, and I don't know if we can get around. It's really starting to come down pretty good out here. And let me show you the camera here. So as you can see, we got the coat keeping the camera safe. Problem being is, and we'll wait for it to take a shot so I can show you. There we go. We'll jump in front of it for a second. We've got, look at that. So that's a serious issue. Those raindrops are going to show up on my shot. So the time-lapse itself is probably ruined at this moment, and I'm going to have to restart it, but there's no use restarting it because, well, I don't think this weather is going to change. It's so beautiful out here, even with the rain. Look at that. To me, that's just absolutely beautiful. And now the coat's getting blown off. So I got to make a decision. Do I yank the time-lapse, go sit in my car? I mean, I drove 45 minutes to an hour to get out here, and I hate for my day to be ruined like that. I planned it out for a whole week. I'm coming out here, and the weather was supposed to be good, but it's not. So this is the decision I'm going to make. I got to think about it. But the shot itself is messed up, so I got to see if I can come up with a better way to shoot, maybe, and not get this thing completely wet. So what I could do, and what I might do, is go set up the tripod and the camera in the car and use the car as, you know, shoot it out of the car, but that way the rain won't get to me as easily. So I'm going to get back with you guys when I figure out what I'm going to do. All right, so it's kind of been a frustrating day so far. Not terribly frustrating. I was able to troubleshoot and fix the issue. So what we ended up doing, or what I ended up doing for this time-lapse, because I really don't want to drive all the way home and kind of just waste hours of the day, is I was able to set the camera up in the car. So we're just shooting out of the back of the vehicle. And as you guys can see, we got it all balanced and stuff. If you can see that right down there, we got that balanced, so it's properly, mainly level, I should say, not really balanced, but it's leveled out. And something that I'm just going to throw in here that has nothing to do with time-lapse, that this is something you guys need to look into getting. My phone actually just died, probably because I've been doing so much vlogging here, and so I got this little external battery pack. We'll add in a link somewhere up in this joint so you guys can go check it out. It says it's 50,000 milliamps. It's not really 50,000 milliamps, but it will charge my phone. Let me refocus on myself here. It will charge my iPhone about 5 to 7 times, which is great if I need to charge stuff up, especially when I'm out here doing time-lapse. So yeah, we're able to just shoot out of the back of the car. There doesn't seem to be getting any snow or rain on the camera lens, which is kind of the issue that why I had stopped before, is because it just couldn't take a proper picture because it was so full of snow and raindrops. So it is doing a little bit of both at the moment. It started out actually kind of nice when I first got up here, and then it's just gotten worse and worse and worse. So sometimes you got to troubleshoot and figure out a way to make it work. Try not to give up if you can help it, but if if it was really bad out here and it was so rainy that you couldn't even see anything, then yeah, I'd probably just not even mess with it. And it still may not come out that well because it is so, I mean, if you guys look out there, it's so foggy, not foggy, but I guess just the clouds and the rain and all that. I don't know if we're going to see much movement, and that's the objective, is to get movement. That's what makes a good time lapse. So I'm just going to kind of hang out and get my 600 shots, and then maybe move to a different position or call it a day. We'll see where we sit an hour and a half from now. I've got a book to read, The Rise and Fall of Ancient Egypt. I'm a big history buff, love history, especially ancient Egypt. Very interesting stuff there. So I'll be able to keep myself entertained. You do want to bring something, magazines, books, something to keep yourself entertained, but at the same time, you need to be in the back of your mind conscious about, hey, I need to go check the time lapse. If I had just got caught up in my book and totally forgot about the time lapse, I probably would have wasted a good half an hour. And totally not even realize that my time-lapse wasn't, we couldn't use it because I had water drops all over the lens, the ND filter, and therefore it was distorting the picture, distorting the shot. So while it's sitting in my car, it doesn't seem to be getting distorted because, as you can see, it's in the car. It's not getting, wind is not throwing the water and rain into the vehicle. I just said water and rain. The snow and rain into the vehicle, therefore allowing the lens to stay dry and get the time lapse. So there's all kinds of variables when it comes to doing a time lapse, and I'm still learning them. All right, guys, so I finished the first time lapse here in the vehicle. There's the camera. I'm going to take pretty much the same exact time lapse over again. I want to do it on darker settings, and I put a darker ND filter on it. And if I'm saying this right, I'm probably not, but Hayada sent me out some ND filters to test out. They're supposedly really, really high end. They're kind of high end with Hayoya and B&W are some of the larger brands. Even TIFF, I believe it's TIFF, is the other kind of mid-grade to higher end ND filter. I've got a 64x 1.8, I think is what it's called, filter on there right now that I just put on there. So what happens is, even though it's it's overcast today, but it's still pretty bright. So I'm gonna need to bring my f-stop down, because my f-stop's sitting at 25, my ISO's at 100, and my shutter's at 5. So the first thing you of course want to change is probably your ISO, then your f-stop, and then your shutter speed. You pretty much don't want to change your shutter speed or f-stop if you can help it during a time lapse, but sometimes there's no getting around changing your f-stop. Because if I had to bring my ISO up, then it would make it brighter, and I wanted to, if anything, make it darker. So I put a darker ND filter on it this time, and I'm pretty much going to take the same shot, but just with pretty much a darker shot. If you have to, you kind of want to go darker with the time lapse than brighter, because it's easier to pull out your exposure and get your lighting to look correct if you're shooting in RAW and you're doing darker. If the shot's completely blown out, there's no information at all there, then what's going to happen is you're just not going to be able to fix it. You can, because you're shooting RAW, you can bring in your overexposed shots and make them look a lot better and almost save them. But if it's completely lost and you just too much information, then what will happen is you'll just have an overexposed shot and there's really no fixing it. So shooting a little underexposed and then bringing it up is a smarter way from what I've from talking to people, from what I understand. So what I'm doing right now is I'm doing a backup of the time-lapse I just did on my laptop. I'm going to back that up and start probably playing around with it a little bit and maybe editing a little bit. And I'm going to pretty much shoot the same exact time-lapse, but I'm going to do it on a darker setting to see if, again, this is just practice for me. So I'm kind of explaining to you guys what I'm practicing. I'm using Magic Lantern, and it has a built-in intervalometer, which I have trouble saying that for some reason. Intervalometer. I do have an intervalometer for the Mark II. Let me see if I can grab it in here. I'll show you guys what it looks like. It allows you to kind of control your time lapse if you're like a Nikon or something, and you need to be able to take a shot at different intervals. Here's kind of what it looks like right here. So this would hook up to your camera, and then you'd be able to control your settings right here. So you wouldn't have to touch the camera as well. I believe the cool thing about the one I bought is after you can set it to a certain amount of shots, I believe. And once you do that, it will just turn your camera off once it's finished. So if you're doing, let's say, 400 shots, you know that at 10 seconds a shot, that your two batteries, which my two batteries got at 10 seconds a shot, my two batteries are still going at 700 shots. So then it will just shut back and come pick up your camera and move on. As well, the reason I'm not using this in Magic Lantern is because I actually ordered this and it only works for the Mark II. I'm not using the Mark II today, so I'm using the T3i. I ordered one for the T3i, and we'll go over how to use all that and what kind you want to get and what kind of features you're going to be looking for. I'm going to be doing so much time-lapse stuff over the next 6 months to a year. This is what I'm really into. This is what I'm really interested in. So people that are out there that are interested in that and into that, I'm going to be throwing all kinds of information your way as I get stronger and better at my craft at taking time lapses. Anyways, we'll be doing other stuff, the reviews, and we'll be teaching other stuff as well, but kind of time lapse is my thing right now, so that's what I'm doing. So looks like the backup's finished, so I'm going to format the card and shoot another time lapse. Okay guys, so I've been sitting out here for roughly 5 hours now, maybe 6, somewhere in that time range. I've done 3 separate different time lapses so far. The first time lapse, got it all backed up, just got to do some basic editing on it and see how it looks. The second time lapse, thankfully I got the first time lapse backed up because the second time lapse actually may not be able to get it. Somehow the card got corrupted. And so when the card got corrupted, I can't actually get the pictures off of it. But thankfully I work for a data recovery company, so hopefully they'll be able to get those photos off there pretty easy. So what I think caused it was the batteries died, and instead of turning the camera off, I just yanked the batteries out. And I think somehow it was in the middle of trying to take a picture. Even though I thought the camera was dead, I guess it was still trying to take a picture. And in the middle of the picture, I probably yanked out the pictures, therefore corrupting the card. So it's probably just a data reading error for the SD card, nothing serious. So that is something that probably can get backed up, but it's kind of expensive if you don't work for a data recovery company. So I'm not able to back up any of those pictures. So what I did is I switched to different cards. And now it's a lot nicer out, as you guys can see. It's not all snowy and crazy looking, and we actually have a nice little time lapse setup. So I moved the camera on down the road a little ways, and I'm kind of shooting a very similar time lapse, and we'll see how that goes. So the middle time lapse that I lost, I actually was shooting it a little darker to see how well RAW worked on bringing the colors, or bringing the exposure up. And I was gonna actually shoot it darker because I believe it is easier to bring it, if it's dark, to kind of bring your light up or bring your exposure up than it is if it's blown out. So I was kind of testing a theory there. So I really want to get those pictures and try to test that out and find out what happens. So anyways, it's been a pretty long vlog so far today, and we still haven't finished today, but I guess I'll just keep going. But it's absolutely beautiful out there. It's still really cold, and it's gotten really windy. So if it's really, really windy out there, you want to make sure your tripod can handle the wind, or you have something keeping it stationary, because if the wind moves your shot, it's going to throw off your shot, and that's could result in bad time lapse. So as you can see, I don't know if you guys can really see that, but the tripod I got on there is a fairly heavy tripod, and so the wind's it's not windy enough for it to be me to be worried about it. But if I was, I'd probably take out something heavy and just set it there or connect it to the tripod so the tripod could not move. Anyways, see you guys in a little while. Well, I'm sitting here actually editing the time-lapse blog, and I realized I never did like an ending statement. I guess that this previous clip that you just watched was the last thing I shot. It was about a week ago. So there's a few things I wanted to go over. One of them being the card corruption issue. So after taking a little time to try to figure out exactly what caused it, I think I kind of figured out what the issue was, and this is something that I think is kind of important for anybody that's made it this far along in the part 2 of my blog. And the reason is I'm using Magic Lantern to take the time-lapse photos using the built-in intervalometer. It's very hard for me to say that word for some reason. I don't know why. So it was taking shots every 10 seconds. And I think what happened is that the battery was getting low. It was about to run out. The time-lapse was still going. I thought the battery was dead. I did not realize the time-lapse was still going. So what you actually want to do if you're using Magic Lantern and you're taking a time-lapse, I think it's very important that what you do is you hit that delete button, you go back into Magic Lantern, you turn off the intervalometer, if I'm saying that right, intervalometer. You turn that off in Magic Lantern, then you can shut your camera off, pull your battery out, change your batteries, put it back in, turn everything back on, turn your intervalometer back on, and pursue and keep shooting. So yeah, you're going to get probably, if you're shooting every 10 seconds, you make it real quick, you're probably going to get, I would say, at least 3 or 4 frames, 40. You should be able to do this in under a minute. You should be able to do this in under 6 frames. You're shooting every 10 seconds. So, and you just reverse that process. You turn your camera back on once it's got the new batteries in it. Go into Magic Lantern, turn your intervalometer back on, and then let it pursue. Let it keep taking its shots. So what happened was, though, that the camera was still trying to take a shot. It was in the middle of a shot. I pulled my batteries out. It corrupted the card. The good thing is that something like that, a lot of times, a very basic data recovery software will probably be able to save that. It's not very serious. It took the data recovery company I'm working for on and off. It took them 15 minutes to back that card back up and get my pictures back off of it. So it was very simple for them to do it. And I'm pretty sure that a basic software will be able to do that for you, so you don't have to send it off to a data recovery company. There are a handful of free data recovery software out there that works fairly well. Anyways, I really wanted to kind of explain that because I wanted you guys to understand what the issue is and what caused it and how not to let that happen to you, especially if it's important. It's something very important. You don't want to lose those photos. So the time-lapse went really well. I did 5 different time-lapses. I haven't really edited any of them. They'll probably sit in the editing queue for, I would say, at least another 2 or 3 weeks before I actually have time. I've got a handful of other stuff to do. I've got so many product reviews to do, and a handful of other projects I'm working on. Staying very busy right now, which is really good. Anyways, but I just kind of want to sum up an ending for the blog there. I hope you guys enjoyed it. As always, if you make it this far, I'd love to hear a comment on what you guys thought, because I don't like filling my channel up with videos that you guys are not interested in watching. It is no fun subscribing to somebody and they're always uploading videos that you're not interested in. I don't know if you know someone like Frono's Photo. Way back in the day when he first started out, and I was a huge fan of his. I mean, I was getting like six updates, or not 6, but probably like 3 updates, 3 videos in one day, and I was just overwhelmed with all the information he was throwing at me, and half the stuff I really wasn't that interested in. And of course, I built this channel to help you guys out, and to pretty much, my channel is built around my viewership. What do you guys want? What do you guys want to see? That's always kind of been my thing, because what's the use of putting up information if you guys don't want to watch it? I don't want to put up something you guys don't want to watch. So, blog time-lapse was great. It was cold. It never warmed up really the whole day, but it did get nicer, but it also got windier at the same time, so that was no fun. Again, having a steady tripod that's very stationary is very big for time-lapse, so if it's really windy, make sure your tripod is not moving. You guys have a great day. Of course, you can check us out at our blog at MediaUnlock.net. Facebook, always uploading stuff to Facebook. David D. Images, I forgot my Facebook for a second. That was kind of embarrassing. And, of course, the Twitter, which is not as used as much as I'd like to, but I don't have a lot of people following me anyways, and that's Media Unlocked. So you guys are awesome. Keep watching. I'll keep making videos, and we'll just keep doing that.